is compliance important, and what happens when we don't make sure something's up to code?
Yeah, Kevin, that's a good call out. We know at WOW how important code compliance is, and it's there for a reason. It's designed around keeping kids and families safe in your space when they are interfacing with play equipment. So yeah, we actually had a recent inquiry that came in. It was another company's indoor playground, and what that business learned was, upon getting an inspection done, the playground was installed out of the International Building Code compliance. And so the fire marshal got involved, the building inspector got involved, and unfortunately, they actually shut that play unit down. They red tagged that door. That area would be deemed inaccessible for that business until they fixed the compliance issue. And so we got called, hey, wow, the experts at compliance, what do we got to do here? And after kind of auditing the playground and really looking at where that other manufacturer had failed, what we decided was we had to actually deconstruct the entire playground, move it 5 feet off of the wall, and completely rebuild it. And furthermore, a lot of the parts, when you build an indoor playground, once it's installed, when you remove those parts, they're destroyed. And so we also had to go back in and remanufacture some parts. And so, yeah, the challenge for that group was that they didn't know at the time when it was being installed that there was a problem. They were just trusting that manufacturer, as you should, to install something that had some longevity. It was a quality product, and that it meets or exceeds the code. And so again, going back to the importance of it, that's a big chunk of why it's so important to ensure that when you're partnering with any manufacturer, that they're responsible with their design and manufacturing and install the code. So challenging situation for sure.
Hey, let me interject real quick, guys. We had a little technical difficulty getting started, but if you're just joining us, I want to make sure that today we're talking about all things codes and compliance as it pertains really to an indoor space, and specifically we're going to be talking about indoor playgrounds. So if you are just joining us and you're thinking, hey, we've been thinking about potentially purchasing an indoor playground and installing one, today is probably the best episode for you, because we're going to be talking about all things codes and compliance. Again, we have Kevin Cravens. Kevin is our creative director at Worlds of WOW, and then we have Andrew Kenney as our special guest today. He is our director of operations. So again, super excited to have everybody joining us today. If you have some questions as well, feel free to message that to me or to us, and then we will, time permitting, we will address those questions at the very end. So again, this is so important because, as Andrew referenced, we don't want you to put in a playground and then have it tagged, and then you can't use it. And then that's, there's a lot of money wasted. So we want to make sure that you do it right. Today's the episode for you to learn all the nuances and things to understand. And the great thing about today's episode, this is going to be on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Subscribe to the Worlds of WOW YouTube channel. And again, you can watch this again and again as you're considering, hey, what do we need to have? What do we need to watch out for when it comes to all things indoor play? So again, thanks for joining us. Kevin, sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure that our audience heard what we're talking about today.
No problem. So yeah, Andrew, you probably, if you're joining us, Andrew just shared a story about what happened to a space that didn't have a play area that was up to code. And so Andrew, I guess just to summarize, I mean, I heard, it got shut down, fixed. I heard my summary would be expensive. It has to be fixed, so it's expensive to fix. And then, it sounds like, what happens? If that gets shut down, I'm wondering, does that kind of open the book for whoever has that authority to be hypercritical of every other part of your space?
Yeah, Kevin, that's a really good call out. When a building or any occupancy, whatever it is being reviewed by a fire inspector for fire safety, or a building inspector to ensure that the building is up to the International Building Code, typically what we find specifically with play areas or areas for kids in general, is that it can really open up that door for scrutiny. And a customer may be put in a really difficult position if that playground wasn't installed correctly. And yeah, it does. It opens up that can of worms to go, okay, well, if you weren't compliant here, what else are you not compliant in? And so again, having a partner that has done that installation, the manufacturing installation to compliance, it's so important to just ease that process, whether you're in new construction and you're trying to get your certificate of occupancy, or you're an existing building and you've got a fire inspection coming up next year. Partnering with the right manufacturer, partnering with the experts like WOW is a huge decision and a lot of value to ensure that you're not going to deal with those issues in the future.
Okay, so I've seen the PDF or the printout of some of these codes, and it's literally, I mean, these are books, right?
Novel.
And so this is, I mean, if you get into it, it's, I mean, thankfully we have people on staff like you and our play design team and some of our other coworkers who understand and have been trained to execute on that code. But it's a book, and you could be like, whoa, holy cow, this seems a little overboard. But what's the goal of all these rules and regulations when it comes to play specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when you think about why these things were created, things like the International Building Code, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ASTM, National Fire Codes, they were all designed for creating a standard that we all agree together in the United States is the safest way to operate in a building, or the safest way to have a playground in your building, or the safest way to have entry and egress or entry and exit to your building in case of an emergency. So these are standards that general contractors are held to when they are making or building a building, constructing. These are standards that teams like us at Worlds of WOW are held to ensure that when we install anything inside of a building, whether it's a thematic environment or a playground, that it's safe to interface with kids and families from purely a safety standpoint, from a fire protection and fire mitigation standpoint. There's just a ton to it. But yeah, the overall scope of it is, they're designed to minimize the risk of injury. They're designed to minimize challenges in case of an emergency, and ultimately are a good thing. And to kind of add to that, you know, Kevin, you did say it is a book, it's a novel, and I would challenge anybody who is getting excited and interested about installing an indoor playground, absolutely take some time to educate yourself on the things you need to look for, like what building code am I under, and you know, does the local planning division need to look at this? But in the same respect, rely on the manufacturer to ensure that they've got you covered with those things.
So I got my career started designing play areas, right? And this is at another company way back when. And I remember the first one I got to design, it was a local one, so I got to go on site, right? And I designed this piece. I followed all the codes, right? According to the codes, like it was perfect, right? But and really the goal was the kid couldn't get on top of this thing, right? It was like 5 feet high, and so it was designed in a way so the kid couldn't get up there according to the code. And you know, we were there, and with literally the first 5 minutes, my boss's son, he took his shoes off, took his socks off, and man, he figured it out, right? So the first 5 minutes, he was on top of that. So I kind of feel like sometimes, it's this battle between our desire to keep kids safe and kids, right? And I feel like a lot of times kids are going to win almost every time, right? So just with that in mind, I mean, we're talking compliance. The goal is, you know, really allowing, you know, risk, because healthy risk is good for kids in terms of their development. But God forbid a kiddo gets hurt. Why is compliance important if, God forbid, that were to happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. Obviously, with any indoor play environment, it's designed in a way to challenge children in a way that it kind of ignites their senses in a bigger sense. It's maybe a little bit of fear to go down that huge tube slide, right? That's a good thing. But yeah, Kevin, to your point, in terms of compliance, when you, I got a little echo there. when you follow the rules and you design it in the spirit of these codes, and you execute, you manufacture, you install it to meet or exceed these codes, the biggest thing it's going to do for you is it's going to minimize the risk, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of those parents. And if, heaven forbid, somebody does get hurt on that, the good thing about that, because accidents can happen anywhere, right? The good thing about that is you get to say, hey, look, this unit was designed to meet or exceed all of the acceptable codes. And this unfortunate accident happened. It may have been that a child broke the rules, or it may have been a myriad of cases. The point is, it really greatly minimizes your risk from a compliance standpoint, because you've checked all those boxes and actually happened, right?
For sure. So I, and if you're listening, it might sound like we're kind of trying to scare you, and maybe that's true a little bit, right? But really the goal is, for all of us to understand, like this isn't, code, being up to code isn't a suggestion, and it's not really an option. It's something that needs to be a part of the conversation. And I think for myself, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and Todd, you can maybe speak to it. But obviously we're not the only ones who design play areas. And so I think fairly regularly when it comes to play, especially, we run up against designs from other companies that we know aren't up to code, right? And oftentimes those are the bids that win for a variety of reasons. So, I guess, so if somebody were looking to work with somebody to design their player, whether it's us or somebody else, I mean, what do they need to look out for?
Well, I think right off the bat, the first thing I can think of is, ask the right questions, talk with that manufacturer, and it's okay if you're not the expert, they should be. And so you get to ask as a potential customer, tell me about what I need to be looking for in compliance. What do I need to deliver to you to make sure that we design this playground so that we're in compliance with the building codes and the fire codes, and start there. And you should be able to kind of check the temperature, if you will, of that manufacturer based on the response you get. And then secondly, what's so important, and I see this unfortunately more often than I should, some manufacturers, when you get that first design and you're looking at this first play space, it is a stock image or a standard component that is not designed in your space. It's not dropped into your floor plan. It's not taking into account how high your ceilings are. It's purely just a unit that a company may have designed, or they're planning to import from overseas or what have you. But again, not designed to your space. And the biggest challenge in compliance is that a lot of the rules and regulations are specifically about the play units interfacing with your building and how it's placed in your building. And so if you were to receive a design that is just a cookie cutter footprint and you're really excited about it and the price makes sense and everything makes sense, ensure that you ask for that to be dropped into your floor plan. When you partner with Worlds of Wow, it's the first thing we ask for is, we'd love to understand your floor plan. We'd love to get a ceiling plan if possible, so we can understand where HVAC is and fire sprinklers are. And once we're equipped with that information, we get to then design this unit to integrate inside of your space and to meet or exceed all of those codes. So just so important.
Sure. Okay. That's good. Okay. So to summarize, learn to ask the right questions. Sounds like, if you just get kind of a generic design, it might look great on the white piece of paper, but if it's not sent to you within the context of your space, that's a pretty big red flag. Okay. So what would be, and I guess maybe just circle back, but and this is compliance, maybe you answered it, but compliance, it was a lot. But what would be like 2 or 3 of the right questions to ask specifically?
That's a great question.
Who doesn't know this? I mean, how would they be able to suss out whether, who they're considering to work with knows what they're talking about or not?
Right. So without getting too technical into the actual codes, the first thing you want to ask is, does this playground meet or exceed the international building code that I fall under? And so knowing what that may be, there's amendments from 2009 all the way up to 2020 for the international building code. But arming yourself with just that one piece of information, make sure you ask that question. Secondly, ask if it's ADA accessible. We know that that our playgrounds are designed to be used for children of all ages and abilities, and that's actually legally mandated within the ASTM or some of the playground codes. And so that question, is this ADA accessible, right, is a big one.
Okay.
So those are two off the top of my head. Trying to think if I could,
What about state by state, right? Does it vary between states, or is it pretty uniform?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. Great question. So certain states, California, Alabama, to name a few, they have their own very specific amendments to the building code that go above and beyond the requirements of what's nationally accepted. And so an example of that in California, we know that seismic activity or earthquakes are a really big challenge for that area in our nation. And so there are excerpts inside of their building code that specifically address inside of occupancies what you need to do to ensure that seismic activity isn't going to harm the building or the equipment. So yeah, the answer is yes. And again, any reputable brand out there that you're talking to, they should know that. And if they don't know that, that's an issue. So specifically, if you're in Southern California, that's a fabulous question to ask right off the bat. Are there any additional considerations I need to think about above and beyond the standard building code?
Sure. So I'm just looking at these questions. Yeah, Todd popped them up on the screen. If I were to ask this to a company, I mean, it's, whether it's true or not, I mean, is the playground ADA accessible? Yes. Right. So what would be some good follow-ups, or would it be, the clients, okay, cool. Give me some examples of how this is ADA accessible, right? How do you take this beyond a yes or no? Because I think, to be frank, we've experienced where clients where we've had to go back after the fact and fix it, we're told by somebody else that they went with that it was up to code.
Right. Yeah, that's an awesome question. The best thing that you can do is, provide me examples of where children in a wheelchair can access the unit. Provide me examples of some ground level play that can be accessed by kids of all ages and abilities. What that is and what that's not. What it's not is, well, here's the entrance and it's got a little handle on it. That doesn't mean that it's ADA accessible. When I see, I can give an example of a playground that we've designed. There's an area that's designed for leg clearance if you were to enter the area that you could play on a play panel. That's a great example of somebody with limited mobility can go up there and they're experiencing that play panel from the outside of the unit alongside a child on the inside of the unit that's experiencing the same thing. And so, a reputable designer is going to be able to, not only they should be excited about it and be willing to brag about how they've designed that to not only meet that code, but really just, we've designed an inclusive unit for you, and here are the examples of that.
Sure.
So that's a really big one. And then secondly, think about the logistics of your building in and of itself. If you've got traffic points or pinch points, there's nothing wrong with asking, hey, can you kind of draw some arrows on the design to show me routes that are accessible? Can you show me how kids are going to go into the playground and what's that circular play route to the slide? And without getting into detail, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to say, hey, this is the exact route. This is how kids interface with the unit. This is why it's accessible to all kids. So just a couple things off the top of my head there.
I mean, the simple solution to all this is everything you just brought up is everything that I mean, that's kind of our approach to design when it comes to playground. The simple solution, work with Worlds of WOW. So, got a team of designers, got a great team of people in the back end who understand coding compliance, and it's just that synergy of working together to design a space with intention, right? It's going to look cool, but if you don't take it beyond cool, if there's no intention behind it, then kind of open yourself to a whole lot of trouble on the back end.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Kevin, while we give a brief pause there again, I just want to interject. If you're just joining us, we are talking all things codes and compliance for indoor playgrounds. Joining us today, Kevin Cravens is our creative director at Worlds of WOW, and then our special guest today is Mr. Andrew Kenney, director of operations. So again, if you're just joining us, we're talking all things codes and compliance. So if you are considering purchasing an indoor playground, quite frankly, the team of experts we have at Worlds of WoW are going to ensure not only is it going to be safe, but it's going to meet all of the required codes and the compliance is necessary to make sure that you don't get shut down, to make sure you can enjoy this playground for years and years to come. So again, super happy to have Andrew here, and we are just in the middle of a conversation, really talking about the right questions to ask. So Kevin, I want to pass the baton back to you.
I will have Andrew and his wall of knickknacks behind him.
I've been collecting all of the cool stuff that our team members have given me and stuff that I've ran across in the shop. And I've got a whole wall full of it back here that I'm pretty proud of.
Nice. Yeah, I see the drawing up top there. Me and another artist, we did that, I think, several years ago of Andrew with his math hammer. That's kind of his thing. So, if you know Andrew, I mean, you probably, if you've been watching, you kind of understand by now, man, he's a super talented artist, and builder, but man, his ability to understand that technical side of things is critical to what we do. And so, yeah, he'll math hammer when it comes to pricing, to codes, to just making sure everything's working how it needs to work. So we gave him a literal math hammer.
Thanks, Kevin.
So if a client, if they have a space and they kind of want to understand right off the bat, even before they talk to somebody, and hopefully come to the table with a little bit of info to get the ball rolling. If they have a space, what are the main things they need to know? Just kind of high level stuff of generally understand what kind of indoor play unit they could fit in their space.
Yeah, great question. So when we look at a room, we look at a space, there's a few critical dimensions that are so important that really help us get the ball rolling on establishing the size of the unit, the occupancy of the unit, and the budget. And that's purely the length, the width, and the height of the building. Or the room. So armed with just those three things, we can already eliminate a lot of compliance challenges by not putting something too close to a wall or by not interfering with a column in the room or what have you. So a couple of pictures and the basic dimensions of that room are a great start. And furthermore, I think pictures are so important because at times when you're looking at a floor plan or you're looking at all this in detail information, we've learned over the years that, and this is okay, but sometimes the building didn't turn out exactly like the floor plan. And so an example of that is the fire suppression system or the handle that you would pull in case of an emergency. We want to make sure we don't interfere with that. Or the fire exit signs. We want to make sure we don't interfere with that. Or HVAC and lighting in the ceiling, those things as your building is being constructed, sometimes things change. That's just part of it. So those few things are a really great start. If you have access to a floor plan, that's also really beneficial because we as designers can take that along with the other information and really cater the shape and dimensions and the activities inside of a play unit really to your space. I mean, we can turn a corner. We can go around certain elements like a column or a wing wall or even furnished. We can work around that. So all really important components of that.
I'm trying to work around. There's a lot of good info, and Todd's popping up a lot of good info. And I'm trying to work around all the info bars coming up. I'm getting kind of off here. So I'm gonna. There we go. Okay.
Trying to hide your face, Kevin. That's all. I'm just trying to block you out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But so my understanding, generally, a good sized room, generally that play unit has to be 5 feet off the wall.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And then generally, how far from the ceiling does it need to be?
Yeah. So generally speaking, you nailed it, Kevin. We've got to stay 5 feet away from the means of egress or entering and exiting that room. We got to stay 5 feet away from walls, partitions, columns, and then also typically, depending on the ceiling type, 18 inches minimum away from things like sprinklers or lighting, smoke detectors, things like that. So that's kind of the bounding box that we typically stick to. And of course, imagine with me that it's not a drop ceiling; it's just an open plan, and you've got a HVAC system up there. All those things we can take into account. But yeah, that's the general That's the general thing we look for.
So I'm going to go back to, it sounds like that's a potential red flag. If somebody gets a design from somebody, and to be frank, we see it all the time still. If you get a design and that play unit is shoved up against the wall, and as a designer, like every fiber of my being, I would love that, because that's more play unit. You get to maximize space. But if you have a play unit shoved up against the wall or from wall to wall, it sounds like that's an immediate issue, or that should be an immediate red flag.
Yeah, it can be, and obviously there are ways to demonstrate adequate fire safety and ask for a variance to the code, and you're going to have to get with your city and planning division, and you can navigate that if it's a requirement, and we can help you do that. But when we talk about right off the bat, just designing responsibly and not diving into all of those additional challenges, those are the rules that we typically like to follow.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a great call out. Yeah, we work with our customers sometimes that you can apply for a variance, but you just need to understand it's not as simple as designing it that way and then moving forward with it. Like it sounds like you'd want to get that variance and make sure you got that variance before you bought the play unit.
Which kind of brings me back, Kevin, and reminds me of something I believe is really important. When you get a playground design and you have questions about your specific jurisdiction or the county or the city that you're operating in, before you dive too far into it, there's nothing wrong with going to your local building official and sliding that design across the counter. We do it very often before we even partner with a church or a business or what have you, and say, hey, here's exactly what we plan on doing inside of our building. And we would like to learn from you what you would like to see on the unit. And with our designs, 9 times out of 10, when that happens, we go, okay, great, high five, looks awesome, and no issues. But definitely challenge you, especially if you have a design that you don't feel is really catered to your building. It's not scary to go to your local planning division. They're there for you to ensure that your general contractor for making your building, building your building, or your architect who's designing your building, or the designer who's designing your playground is doing it right. So,
yeah, for sure. Okay, so if you have a space, either you have a plan view or you have the dimensions. If you understand that generally speaking, just to get a general idea before you even talk to anybody, that play unit's got to stay 5 feet from every wall. It's got to stay at least 18 inches from the ceiling. And then generally, if we're talking indoor contained play, we're talking essentially about 4x4x4 cubes, right? For the most part. Just with some of that basic info, you can map out and have just a general idea right off the bat of the kind of the size and what it would look like in your room. And I think kind of going back to some of our conversations over the earlier weeks is, we're really passionate about, it's not just about plopping a play unit into the space, but at Worlds of Wow, for us, it's about addressing the whole space, right? To create that playful environment for the whole family. And so it is thinking about that play unit. It is thinking about other play features for the kiddos, but it's also thinking about moms and dads while they're hanging out too. And there's no reason they shouldn't have the opportunity to be in a playful atmosphere that ignites their imaginations and to get them into a playful state of mind as well. So yeah, that's some really good info, Andrew. I think we're about ready to wrap up here, but I've always appreciated your ability to kind of boil things down and just your straightforwardness and your passion about what you do. So I'm going to ask you your 60-second pitch if somebody's thinking about using a play company, why they should work with Worlds of Wow.
That's a great question.
60 seconds.
If you want to partner with somebody who's going to come alongside your process, whether you're building a building or you've been in a building, and you want a team who's going to come alongside you, help you navigate all of the things that we talked about today, and truly cater to your needs and create something that is inclusive for all kids of all ages and abilities, is designed around keeping families safe and having a blast, and ultimately a turnkey solution from the moment you start talking to us to the moment that we sign off on your playground, we start your warranty period, and kids and families get to start enjoying it. If that's what you're looking for, give us a call. There are a million companies out there that can buy a playground domestically, overseas, what have you, and bolt it into your building, and that's okay. But just based on the context of our conversation today, it's our responsibility as a team of artists, designers, and manufacturers to truly deliver that turnkey, safe, compliant solution for you that you can enjoy for years to come. So that's my pitch, Kevin.
I mean, got nothing to add to that. That's good, Todd.
Good.
Yeah, that was it's great. Again, I think one of the things that again, if you're joining us and watching today's episode, that our WOW team has installed hundreds and hundreds of playgrounds all over the United States. As Andrew referenced and Kevin alluded to earlier, sometimes states have different codes and compliance, and specifically, we called out a couple, one being California. We've had several playgrounds we've designed, had to do things just a little bit differently because of fault lines and so on and so forth. But if you're looking and you're considering purchasing an indoor playground, our team of experts are here to help guide and be a tremendous resource, whether that's, we need extra communication with the city or with the county, or just code and compliance in general. We're going to meet and exceed those expectations. So, Andrew, if someone says, you know what, we're ready to get started. We're ready to get started and we want to partner with a WOW team. What do they need to do? What should they do to begin the process of getting an indoor playground designed and installed?
Yeah, great question, Todd. So I would say the first thing you do, visit our website, Flickr page, familiarize yourself with the equipment as best you can, and just try to get an idea of what your dreams are. And then walk into that room if it's built, and if it's not built, talk to your architect and your contractor to go, okay, let's get a good sense for where we want it, what are our hopes and dreams, and with that information, just reach out to us. It's a conversation, right? We can help you navigate and help you understand some of the things that you're going to want to be looking for, and really just better equip you, even if you're looking at other manufacturers, just better equip you to start having those conversations. But yeah, reach out to us, have a conversation with our design staff, and we can start that process of learning your needs and get an initial design out to you. And from there, just continue to refine that until we achieve your goals within your budget, among other things, and start the process. So yeah, we're a phone call away. We love what we do. I love talking shop, if you will. So if you have any technical questions, reach out. But yeah, phone call away.
You said something I think it's very interesting, and you said the magical word a lot of times in when it comes to the design early on is architect and partnering with the architect. Mm-hmm. Would you share briefly why is it so important to bring us in early on as a church is having a space designed, and the benefit that we bring to the architects as well as to a client, to a church or FEC or thinking of pediatric dentists, we do a lot of indoor playgrounds there. What's the value add to bring us in early when it comes to designing an indoor playground to fit into a space like that?
Todd, I am so glad that you asked that question. When you partner with us, we are a design resource as the experts from a place standpoint, and it's okay that architects and general contractors are not. And so by engaging us early in the process, we get to work with you and your architect and general contractor to ensure that if there are small edits that can be made inside of your building to get you what you really want, whether it be moving HVAC a few feet or it is changing the layout of the room, not necessarily drastically, but changing the layout of the room, we get to do that alongside the architect during that design phase. We get to do that alongside the builder as they're building that. And what that truly does is it really mitigates additional cost. And it absolutely sets you up for success in terms of compliance, because we're going to deliver a construction set of drawings that your architect and your general contractor can submit to the city for you. So yeah, Todd, that's hugely important. We absolutely love partnering during that construction or design phase, because again, that's when the canvas is blank and we truly get to have a lot of fun with you and work through any potential challenges that could happen and alert those groups of things we see as not compliant to ensure that everything goes off without a hitch. So yeah, Todd, great call out.
One thing as we wrap up, I think about oftentimes that is a question that gets it's failed to be addressed or even thought through, and that is seating for parents. Because there's going to be a parent or two that's going to get up and play with their child. A lot of them are going to be, quite frankly, buried in their cell phones, which we hope that they wouldn't. But that's the reality. So can you talk about that as well? And Kevin, you might be able to speak into this: the importance of having the right amount of seating into a space, whether that's inside the play structure, or if there's a glass walls outside the play structure. But just talk about the importance of that, if you would, real quick, Kevin and Andrew.
Mm-hmm. I know, Kevin, you and I could go round and round about this one for sure. The thing that's kind of top of mind to me is, as parents, you want to ensure that your kids are having fun and that they're being safe. And so just providing a comfortable place for parents to just be present, it matters. And it's also nice too in a playroom where it's almost a jump-in point for kids and parents as well, who want to interface with kids who are having fun in the play unit. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with having, some seating inside for kids to rest, things like that. But yeah, I think it's a really important thing outside of the playground. Purely comfort, right? If I'm tired, I'm a kiddo, sit down next to mom for a few minutes, awesome. And then comfort for the parents, and just from a safety standpoint, giving parents the opportunity to always have eyes on their kiddos.
There we go. I think that's about it, right?
Yep.
Well, awesome. Hey, again, to our audience, thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, maybe you have a playground that's been designed and you're having some code and compliance issues, you can reach out to the WOW team. We can certainly talk through and look at your structure to see if and how we can help you. And if you are also considering making the investment, to me, an indoor playground is one of the best ways, if you're a church, to engage your community. I think it's a great missional outreach strategy. And man, we'd love to help you. So you can reach out to us at hello@worldsofwow.com. Of course, as well, you can Google us, find our number on our website, and reach out to us that way as well. But we'd love to help you. Hopefully you can see we're passionate and we love what we do here. And we have two of our team that's incredibly talented, and that they are the experts at what they do. So again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and we're so honored that you joined us today. Have a great weekend, everybody.